Okay, let's go ahead and begin working with Visual Studio 2005 again. Before we begin working with the Windows Forms Designer, I'd like to go ahead and point out where you would go and change the options for the Form Designer. We're not going to spend much time there since we've kind of covered changing options in a fair amount of detail. And actually, there's not a whole lot that you can change with the Forms Designer. So we'll just come on down here to the options and we'll show you the Forms Designer. Again, you saw me in here before. Let's go down here to the bottom to Windows Forms Designer, and again, in general, you have the ability to change some various settings here. Grid size, I've got set at 8 by 8. Layout mode, I've got set to snap lines. It could be snap to grid. Again, show the grid or snap to grid are settings that you would use with the snap to grid settings right here. Again, like so. And since I want snap lines, I'll go ahead and leave that there. And then can automatically open smart tags is set to true. You're going to see smart tags in here very shortly. And then refactoring doesn't apply to COBOL, so we won't go ahead and we won't bother with that. And then of course toolbox, auto toolbox populate is basically a set of settings when you have components that you have out there that would be automatically populated by the project. So we're not going to be working with that as well. So I'll go ahead and say OK. That's fine right there. These current settings are more than sufficient for what we're going to do. So I'm going to go ahead and create a brand new project here, and we're going to start from scratch. Now this is the first time that you've actually seen me create a brand new solution and project from scratch. In the previous lesson, we went ahead and saw a version of a project and solution that was already created. Now we're going to go ahead and create one from scratch. So I'll say File, New, Project. And of course what will happen here is I'll be presented with a new project dialog or screen that basically has all the different projects and types of projects that I could have. I could have Visual Basic or C#, Visual C++, and of course what is near and dear to our hearts would be COBOL. So in the COBOL projects, again, we've got some basic defaults set up here. We can do database projects and of course Windows projects, which is what I want. I want to go ahead and create a Windows application. Now the next one that I want to go ahead, the next thing that I want to go ahead and change would be the name of the project. So what you see here is Windows Application 1. Well, I'd like something a little bit more descriptive, so I'll just call this, let's see, TDOWIN. Okay, and the location is just fine right there. Now keep in mind that this location could be changed. If you click on Browse, you could go ahead and set it to whatever subdirectory that you want to have that located at. The other thing that is important is that solution name. You've got check box right here that says create a directory for a solution. Again, if you uncheck that, you see that is basically grayed out here, and not a new directory for a solution will not be created under projects. Now if I select this, what will happen under projects is it'll be all of your projects and your source code will be located under directories called D, My Documents, Visual Studio 2005, Projects / TDOWIN. Now, again, this will be different on your machine. You may have it on a C drive or an E drive or wherever you want to go ahead and put that. Now, also notice down here I have this Add to Source Control. If I click that, then all of the project and all the subsequent files and components that I create in this project will all be added to source control. So I will go ahead and ignore that one for right now because probably the majority of you will not have Visual Source Safe installed. So in order to keep this very close to what you guys are going to be doing, I'll go ahead and just ignore that. So I'll go ahead and say OK for this point. And you'll notice what happens next is that you have the Solution Explorer is going to be populated with a new solution and project. And of course I see my Windows form right here, and that'll be this right here. Now what you see is essentially a blank slate, a blank canvas for you to go ahead and start working with. But before we start that part, I want to come over here and explain a few things with the solution and projects here. So the very first thing that we can see is I've got two windows open. I've got a Solution Explorer window open, and I've got my Properties window open. The properties of this solution are right here. The project file is called tdowin.cobproj, and of course the project folder is also in here. Let me just kind of move this out here so that you can kind of see. You can see, of course, where it is actually located. Now, moving on, you can see that I have additional folders out here. Now, the next one I wanted to kind of cover is references. Now, if you'll think back earlier to lesson 1 and then earlier in this lesson, we talked about namespaces and that hierarchy that is out there with the namespaces. And in this lesson, in the previous slides, we saw that I had the hierarchy established for some of the namespaces that I would be using for WinForms. And what is automatically populated in this solution is system, system.data, system.deployment, system.drawing, system.windows.forms, and of course system.xml. Now you also have sources, the ability to add additional references in here. If I simply right mouse click, I can add a reference or I can add a web reference. And we're going to talk a little bit more about web references when we start talking about web services. But for now, I'll just go ahead and click on add a reference. And what will happen is that another dialog or a screen will be presented here in just a moment that will display whether there are COM objects that I wanted to add to this or whether there are additional Windows framework references that I want to add to this. And of course, I'll show you how to add that in just a moment. Okay, so what you see here is add a reference dialog. So I've got .NET, I've got COM. I can also add references from other projects, as we can see right here. If I had any other projects, I could have the project name, project directory, and listed right there. I can browse for additional DLLs or EXEs, all of these components right here. And of course, if I've got any recent things that I have opened up, you can see where I've been working with NeoKix, so I see all my NeoKix components right there. So if I wanted to go ahead and let's say I wanted to add a .NET component in here, I'd go ahead and come down here to, let's see if I can find one that I want to have. Let's see, I've got system XML. Oh, let's just say I want to put system security in there. So I could just click on that and say OK, and then what would happen is now I've got system security out there as well. Now that right now that won't affect anything that we're doing, so but I'll just go ahead and leave that so that you kind of get the idea of what's going on. So now what I want to go ahead and do is I want to go ahead and kind of move this over and start working with my form. Now I'm going to make a couple of assumptions here that when we start working with the form, we're going to want to do some very basic things first. I want to change a few properties. I want to change how the form behaves just a little bit. But before I do that, I want to bring up my toolbox and kind of establish my kind of my work area first. So let me go ahead and collapse some of these, and we'll go ahead and get into common controls first. But let me go ahead and change the properties here of this form. Now, one of the most important things that you're going to start working with as you start working with the Forms Designer is you're going to want to understand a little bit about the properties. There's a couple different kind of properties, as we previously have discussed in the presentation that preceded this, and that is design time properties and runtime properties. Design time properties are done right here when you're in the design environment, the design studio, if you will. So the first thing that I'd like to go ahead and change, and you'll see how easy this is I want to go ahead and change this form 1 in this caption bar. That's what this is right here. You've got an icon, you've got a caption bar, and of course you have a minimize button right here, and then a maximize button right here, and of course the close button, the X right there. So I want to go ahead and change that form 1 to make it just a little bit more meaningful for me. So again, what I'll do is I'll come over here and I just want to make sure that I'm in the right place. So where you do that is always in the appearance part right here. And I want to just come on down and click on text, and I'll just name this Tim's window. Oh, let's make it COBOL. Well, that's an awfully long name, but that's okay. That's kind of descriptive of what it is that we're going to be doing. And again, you can make that anything that you really want it to be.